In Benin, Kirby, to mark 2 years administration there in Kirby State, and of course in different states of the Federation, apart from those who, of course, were marched through off-cycle or off-season elections. It's been a day of assessment, reflection, and projections as Nigerians reflect on 2 years of the current administration at the center. Like I said earlier when we started, this has been a period, you know, those who watch football, they say half time. They give you 15 minutes break, then you continue. But in this case, there's no break, so we continue. But it's half time as far as this administration is concerned. So what will be happening in the second half? We'll be looking at all that in the course of today's telecast. Earlier in the day, I told you that it is a potpourri of reflections as well as an interrogation of different sectors of the nation's economy. Let me welcome you back if you're just joining us. This is NTA Special program on meetup assessment of the Tinubu presidency. A handshake that was enacted on the 29th of May 2023, and that has led to actualities on ground, promises kept, some yet to be fully actualized. We'll be looking at all that in the course of this program. Let me welcome my next guest into the studio. I'm talking about the Member of Parliament, Professor Paul Machis, a member representing Enugu East and Isuzo Federal Constituency of Enugu State. Thank you for joining us. He's a member of the Labour Party. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And of course, across the aisle, talking about the segment for professionals as well as sector experts, Ayodeji Makinde has taken over from where Claire left off, and he will be speaking on key issues as far as the Nigerian economy is concerned. Ruth Aguele is also still standing by for our town hall conversations. We'll be also talking to different people from different strata of society, as well as key interventions made, talking about key interventions made by the current administration in their lives and their hopes and aspirations as well, distilled in one voice of common aspiration. We'll be looking at all that in the course of this telecast. Without wasting your time, let's quickly delve into it. Professor Paul, first of all, we didn't agree that you should also wear the same blue as I'm wearing, but of course you are a beneficiary of this, of democracy. And being an academician and now on the other aisle as a lawmaker, tell us about your experiences, the contract with the people, from the podium to the floor of the House. Have those expectations been met, or at this time are you still thinking about how to meet them?
Well, thank you for this question, but I also would tell you that aspiration is just about perspective and perspectives in this case. First, I would say that if you want to meet your ambition or expectation, it is personal. There is a group expectation and there's a personal expectation. In my expectation as a person, what I've noticed in the House, for this 10th Assembly, I will also say that has positioned itself in two ways. One, a partner in governance, but also a custodian of the people's interest and public trust. Then, you yourself as a legislator, you key in, one, to attract things to your people, and also for the people to benefit from the democracy aspiration of what they have voted you for. In that case, what do I have to do? Do I have to do my bills? It is personal. Whether you do it or you don't do it, it is personal. Because the House will not say, please go and do bill that will help your people. It is your aspiration. Then your background starts to help. Your background now comes to play on what you do. Whether you watch your bill you're passing, what you say in the House, does it have effect on the generality of the people? Because at a point, you just know, you're a national legislator and not a local legislator. So you are representing the country through a prism which you have come from, and which is that's your constituency. But you must see yourself as a national figure. So your aspiration is about a constituency, but also about bettering the loss of the people and making sure the people's interests are still covered. So these are most of the things, and I should also say, your background will have to play a role. You may also have to counter, like for you to move a bill that will have to do with academics that is, maybe you are covering those
Your
things.
early intervention has taken me from the floor of the House of Assembly to the lecture theatre, but I just remembered you are a prof. But let me quickly go straight to Ayodeji Makinde. Ayo, you have a panel there, and I understand that they are raring to go chomping at the bit. Ayo, it's over to you.
Oh, yes, thanks so much, Fisayo. But just for a quick reminder for those who are just tuning in, let's get to introduce and meet our guests here in the studio. I have Amsfree Ajana, who is Executive Director, Grassroots Center for Civic Orientation. It's good to have you on this afternoon session.
Thank you.
Surely, Suleiman Danzaki is the SSA to the NURTW on intergovernmental and international matters. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And there is a professor of political science and international relations of Al Mohiba Open University. He's an expert and a regular face here on the NTA. Professor Mukhtar Imam, thanks for your time as well.
My pleasure.
Now let's hit the ground running this way. It's a midterm assessment of the performance of President Bola Tinubu's administration.
Right.
Let's take a look at some specifics, 8 key priority areas. Let's start with the economy. How has it fared?
Well, that question is as subjective as it is debatable. But the reality is that we must understand, to set the tone for the conversation, that democracy is a journey and not a destination. And second of all, governance is a continuum. The current administration, since coming on board, has done the most it can in ensuring that we have a sustained economy, one where its micro and macroeconomic indices, as far as reflecting on the lives of the ordinary citizenry, will be positive. However, there have been lapses here and there. The government has had its challenges, which sometimes and often at times is not necessarily peculiar to just the Nigerian state, because Nigeria as a country doesn't live in isolation. There have been a lot of shock waves as far as the economy all over the world is concerned. So, yes, I think the administration has fared well in the area of the economy. It has set the tone for ensuring that the micro and macroeconomic indices that are used to gauge economies around the world are present and prevalent positively within the context of the Nigerian economy. In the area of infrastructural development, for example, the administration has fared well. Of course, in the area of food security, it is doing the most that it can, even though there are pockets of challenges and skirmishes here and there that are essentially causing some of the setbacks that we're witnessing today. But overall, I would say the administration has put in its best. There is more to be done, because the reality is the economy isn't looking too good as far as all of the indicators are concerned. It is not looking good at all. The president was bold enough. One of the first steps he took after assuming office was the withdrawal of the subsidy, which of course should have translated into meaningful development in touching the lives of the people. But you see that the withdrawal of subsidy has essentially created a room for a 30% food inflation in the country, which is not very good. And it is telling as far as the ordinary man is concerned. Because you see, for the average citizen, he's not concerned about what name you give to the administration or government or system. All he's concerned about is food on his table. He's not concerned about the figures that are churned out from IMF and all the, fancy institutions. He's concerned about the micro. Is he able to feed? Can he access his farm? So you find that some of these issues are still lingering. Before the previous administration left, from the study we conducted, it was discovered that conservatively, over 60,000 hectares of farmland had been abandoned. As we speak, that figure has gone to about 100,000 as a result of the lingering insecurity crisis across the country. So these issues are always pari passu. You cannot detach one from the other. But on a whole, like I said, as far as the economy is concerned, the president is doing the most that he can. With regards to forex regime, that's another issue, because these are indicators, of a country's performance on a global scale. And the truth is, I will sum up with this, that every government needs to understand that the ruler or parameter for assessment at the end of the day is how you fare with your economy and how much protection you're able to give to your people in terms of security. And the major indicator for the economy is the micro. And if that is not taken care of, it's going to spell doom. But overall, we're doing well, we're making progress, and democracy is gaining grounds.
Well, Suleiman Danzaki, you're from a sector that has perhaps a cross-combination of both the young, the youth, and the elderly, the ARTW. If you are to make them believe in what this government has done in the last 2 years, how have you been able to bring down the policies of government to ensure that people key into the sector?
Yes, thank you so much. The government, from the beginning, they have started, and we feel very, very harsh in our health sector. That is the withdrawal of subsidy. And the withdrawal of subsidy that causes a lot to the economy. You know, when we make our own calculation, we realize is that more than 95% of the people in Nigeria, both those from agricultural sector and commuters, they always rely on the road transportation. So the withdrawal of economy gives us a lot of hardship, so that many people have suffered, most especially the workers. You know, I'm a unionist. The workers are suffering so much on transportation. So the transportation are taking more than 80% of their take-home salaries. But the government have decided to delve into the issue of CNG. The CNG, really the government have tried. They give our union about more than 1 million kit of the CNG. But the problem is refilling areas. In Abuja here that you have to queue, you have to spend the whole day. So you see that the commuters are the ones suffering. So I believe that if the government really wanted to separate the economy all over, they need to so much intervene like other countries about the transportation. The moment that you don't provide a good transportation to your people, it is like incastrating them because they cannot move. Even the economy of agriculture, most especially in the area of evacuating from the rural to urban areas, many people are suffering. That is what adds a lot for the food items to our people. You know, the transporters, most especially everyone, including myself, I'm suffering from moving from one place to another. If I have a vehicle in the whole family, it means that immediately I drive from my village to Abuja. The rest of the people are suffering from the high rate transport fare. So therefore, the government must have to do the needful. Most especially in our own calculation, we realize that both three-tier system of government, I'm insisting on this always, both three-tier system of government, local, state, and federal government, they have no 5% investment in road transportation. So the government, if really they want the economy to spread all over and to reduce the suffering from the people, the transportation must have to give so much priority more than any other person. The moment that you stop the transportation, the moment the transportation is not moving, then everybody will suffer.
I'm sorry. It is often said there's no free lunch everywhere. Even when there are free lunches, you still have to pay for one or two things. Taking a look at the last 2 years, there's so many policies of government that they keep churning out on a daily basis. But sometimes the mindset of some people resident here is just not receptive to these things. How far in the last 2 years have the minds of Nigerians been fertile to some of these policies to really grow the economy and make Nigeria the country that we really want?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important and insightful question, which takes us to the core of key governance processes. And one of those key governance processes, and which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu really reflected deeply on in enunciating, is his Renewed Hope agenda. And I read that document extensively. And you could see that, of course, in terms of the ideas and the philosophy of governance, it was well thought out. I would say that the president had about the most lofty and poetically worded a campaign agenda. If you look at some of the pages of that document, for example, he says he doesn't want to see a Nigeria where any mother sends their child to bed hungry. Mm-hmm. This really very key. But of course, like my co-panelists have mentioned, the question of the implementation of the policies and the outcomes of those implementations, where there are gaps, you now see a situation in which the people react, to some of those policies with a sense of distrust. And then when you also have a policy design and implementation process in which there is not a lot of synergy with civil society, the civic voices, who will also take the nuts and bolts of those policies to the grassroots, then you would have a governance disconnect, a disconnect between what the government wants to deliver and also what the people's expectations are for those delivery. And this is why many civic actors have made the point over and over again that the question of subsidy removal, for example, there needed to be a lot more conversations, a lot more in-depth, deep-diving conversations in communities to prepare the people, and then, a lot of alternatives needed to, be put in place for the people to be able to adjust to the new disruptions that were coming within the economy. We know for a fact, and we make no mistake about the fact that, the president actually inherited a lot of distortions. But in dealing with those distortions from the perspective of the people at the grassroots who feel the pinch, because we cannot run away from the fact that the people feel the pinch and the people are asking for a breather. And in asking for a breather, I believe this 2 years timeline is a time for reset. It's a time, to look back at the data and look back at the impact and say, okay, we need to tweak the implementation here and there and so on. And the final point I would like to make, on this question is the question of the social protection component. It is not like the president has not pushed forward policies for social protection. We have conditional cash transfers that are ongoing. We have programs that are ongoing. But the question, and very key question, is the scale at which those social protection programs are going around. So if you have a dislocation or a disruption in the economy that has affected millions of people, and then probably the social protection component, is just touching maybe 500,000 people here, and the scale is not that robust enough to match the initial scale of the disruptions you have experienced, then of course you are going to still have that anguish among Nigerians about the fact that, they are hard done by the economic policies. But I want to also believe that Nigerians still see hope. They know that definitely with all of these discussions we are having, these explanations we are having, and even from the feedback the government itself is getting from these policies, it will be able to make the right adjustments and then not just go on with the mindset that, it's all well and we have to keep doing what we're doing, but to ensure that the right adjustments are made for the benefit of the people.
Prof, you belong to a constituency where you teach the young ones and then you share your experience with policymakers at different institutes. But wait a minute. There's this staggering statistics that's worrisome. The average age in Nigeria, or should we call the median age in Nigeria, is 17 years or thereabout. We say the youth are the future. In the last 2 years, taking a look at the policies of the federal government, from your constituency, how much of hugs or acceptance have you seen students of tertiary institutions do with some of these policies of federal government? Because they eventually are the drivers in the long run.
Well, students are a demography that has to be taken into account whenever, not just students, young people, period. Whenever conversations are had about nation building, the sustainability of policies, because of course, like you rightly mentioned, they are the drivers of some of these policies. Young people across board don't go to different markets from which the older demographic go to. So essentially, you will come to realize that whatever policy is made in the interest of the old will also affect the young as well. Yes, there are specific salient policies that have been churned out by the current administration reflecting young persons, particularly the constituency you have just talked about. NEFON, for example, is a policy the administration has put in place to ensure that young persons have access to higher education. No doubt that is the case or the intention of the administration, but I think at this juncture, perhaps it might be too early to reach a conclusion. But the reality is that it leaves more to be desired. Just a couple of years ago, we talked about the out-of-school children number. The statistic at the time was rattling. People said 8 to 10 million. Currently, we're witnessing a surge in that because as we speak, the figure is about 12 million out-of-school children. Speaking of secondary, basic education, primary to secondary. So you would see that these young persons are essentially disconnected from policies of government, not just this government, successive government and so on and so forth, which has created a deficit in itself. And so the government needs to do, in my view, a lot more to ensure that that constituency is given attention. Because if you're serious about growth, you must understand that your young population are essential to that growth. They are the drivers of growth in any economy. And if you do not create an enabling environment for that demography to ensure that they put to use the things that they possess, it becomes disadvantageous to the state. I have always said that an average Nigerian youth has entrepreneurship skills in his DNA. He just doesn't have the enabling environment to be able to actualize that. And so these are areas that I think government needs to look to ensure that a lot more is done with regards to how we galvanize our young. It is very worrisome, the things that we see, images that come out, particularly on the social media, the get-rich-quick syndrome, the idea of wealth without work. It is a very disturbing trend. One that needs to be checked. And it is not just going to be checked by word of mouth. We are doing the most we can as educators to ensure that we inculcate the right values in our young. But it goes beyond just inculcating values. While there are socio-economic issues, i.e. income inequality, a widening gap in wealth distribution, ongoing, there are also social psychological conditioning issues that must be paid attention to. Thought process, mindset, etc., patriotism, discipline. These are some of the things values that must be entrenched in our young if we are to see the Nigeria we desire. So I think the government needs to do more in, investing in these areas, because without them, it's going to be extremely difficult for us to achieve a sustained environment where there will be peace, where there will be prosperity. Because as we are currently, there's a deficit in governance, there's a deficit in development, which has created a deficit in peace. And all of this have basically essentially been created as a result of the trust deficit between the citizens and the government. And that's why there's a democratic reversal going on all over the world. People are fed up as a result of not seeing the dividend of good governance, reflect in their lives and their livelihood.
Well, so many things to really talk about these particular demography. I understand you have some engagements here and there, but surely there'll be enough time on different platforms of the NTA to really delve into these issues and analyze it better. But my colleague, Ruth Agwele, is deep-rooted in the town hall with some engagements as well. Ruth, let's have the vibe from the town hall.
Thank you very much, Ayodeji. I was just enjoying the conversation there with your panelists. And, Prof said something very salient. talking about imbibing these moral values. If you recall, the value charter that the NOA launched sometime early this year is something, of course, that has to do with morals, being patriotic, you know, believing that you are a Nigerian. And I want to believe that this youth here, they have the mind of their own, they also have the voice of their own, and they have their perspective, obviously, of what they want to see as governance, talking about good governance. So let's hear from them. Just before we get to you, I know they're all eager to hear and want to hear what they will have to say regarding their perspective of what they're expecting from this administration. I'd like to hear from Mr. Theophilus Odaudu. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, great. He's a program officer, Disability Right Fund. Of course, Mr. Odaudu, you have worked with different, organizations that promotes the rights of persons with disability. And we have young people, who are living with one form of disability or the other. Now, for you, or rather your organization, what are those advocacies you're projecting, you're propelling, to promote inclusion, to carry the young people along?
Okay, thank you very much. Youth with disabilities in many areas have been marginalized, and all along the advocacy is about inclusion and creating opportunity for youth with disabilities to participate both in governance and in all services that is being given, all interventions by the government. Because most of the time when interventions are made and programs are designed, persons with disabilities are excluded. And when they are not expressly included, then it's difficult to make a proper provisions and arrangements for them. But again, even when persons with disabilities find themselves integrated in some ways, it's very difficult for young persons with disabilities, because the disability community itself also it's a reflection of the larger community. So older persons with disabilities who have been in the game, who are very visible, are often the ones that are called to the table, and little or no opportunity is given to young persons with disabilities. So young persons with disabilities crave more opportunities to participate in governance, in programs, in services, and in intervention. And they look, a lot of young persons with disabilities have gone through the educational institutions, okay, and are out there seeking gainful employment, but again facing a lot of discriminations from employers, and not having reasonable accommodation even when employed to enable them perform have been like obstacles on their path to growth.
Okay, Mr. Theophilus, earlier we had a conversation on promoting inclusion, especially for this employment quota, and we had the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs. There's a 5% quota, that is provided in the Act, for persons with disability. But let's hear from Olushola David Ojo, who represents that demography of young people, even though I'm saying gray hair. Okay, of young people, who are living with disabilities. For you, you are a sports commentator, you're a graphic designer, you're doing your own thing. But talking about promoting that inclusion, in governance for young people, especially persons with disability, carrying them along, what would you like to see get better?
Thank you. Like my colleague has said, yeah, I'm doing my own thing. That is because there was no inclusivity for me.
In the past? In
the past. I happen to be a graduate of political science. The professor who just spoke happened to be my lecturer when I was in school. So we are glad.
There's a reunion here.
Yeah, there's a reunion. Actually. We are glad that the government had thought it wise to give us 5% of employment. But, a lot have been said about policies and policies and policies. Implementation. We don't get that 5%. We have been going through negotiations, lobbying, discussion, even the office of the SSA. We have been engaging them continuously, but we are happy that finally our voice has been heard, and probably soon our hope will be lifted, and this 5% will be given to people with disability.
You know, I like the fact you hinged on hope. And there's a hope just beside you, because we have the representative of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Special Needs and Equal Opportunities. He's the Director, Media and Communications, Mr. Larry Oloyede. You're sitting in two capacities here. You are also an inclusion and disability rights advocate. You just heard what Olushola David said. So I want to believe that there are a lot of programs lined up, but his concern is implementation of some of these initiatives that directly impact persons with disability. Tell us your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Mr. President was very clear right from the word get-go about his policy direction as regards inclusive development. And that is why he appointed the SSA to help him to articulate this policy and to break the gap between policy and the people, because policy is actually meant for the people. And if policy is not impacting the people, then that policy is not serving its purpose. So since assumption of office, the Honorable Mohamed Abba Issa, the SSA to the President of Special Needs and Equal Opportunities, has been working based on the mandates that Mr. President gave him to liaise with ministries, departments, agencies, and all other stakeholders, including subnational authorities, to ensure there is inclusion of disability requirements and perspectives in the policies and programs of all these agencies, right from policy formulation level and follow through to implementation. Because where the gap has always been is in the policy formulation. You see, inclusion or inclusive development has always been an afterthought in Nigeria. It's a situation whereby at the implementation of programs, they just suddenly remember that there are people called PWDs, persons with disabilities. Okay, where can we fix them? But Mr. President said, no, there has to be a policy shift, that these people, their requirements and concerns has to be included, inculcated right from policy formulation and then follow through up to implementation. And Honorable Abba Issa, upon his absorption of office, has been liaising with different MDAs. Now, the issue of 5% that he referenced, actually, it is not even 5%. Section 29 of the National Disability Act says minimum 5% of workforce in all government, agencies, ministry departments shall be persons with a disability. So, Mr. President, the Honorable Abba Issa has been engaging with different ministry departments and agencies as regards this, and it has yielded positive results. There are a number of employments we have been able to get as a result of advocacy and engagement with all these MDAs on the need for them to comply with the provisions of the National Disability Act as regards employment. But the Disability Act did not speak to employment alone. It speaks to accessibility. It speaks to avoidance of discrimination. It speaks to a whole number, including inclusive healthcare service delivery. So, through the strategic engagement with different ministries, like the Ministry of Health and Social Development, for instance, okay, we've been able to develop an inclusive and accessible healthcare policy, and the minister himself has prioritized this policy in all sectors, in all our healthcare service delivery, okay, in order to ensure that persons with disability have easy access to quality healthcare delivery.
Okay, and when we have young people who are not taking advantage of, information available, or rather initiatives put out there, you become disabled in your field of endeavor or in your dreams. So we don't want that to happen to our core members here. Let's pass the mic to Mr. Victor. Mr. Victor, in less than this year, rather, you will stop being a court member, and I'm sure you have your aspirations, you have your dreams, you're part of governance, and you have seen that this administration has demonstrated commitment to carry young people along. But for you as a young person, how would you, position yourself to take advantage of some of these initiatives, spelled out for young people?
Okay,
take the mic closer to you.
Okay, please. Okay. I'm actually grateful for the opportunity to serve the fatherland, which is actually mandatory also, but it's also something we should be grateful for. And also the Minister of Youth Development, who has made efforts that will work closely with what we actually studied in school. In camp, there's a saying that a core member with 2 skills. So if one doesn't work out, there's also another option.
Yeah, that's a new project they started recently.
Yeah, so a core member with 2 skills. So for myself, well, as I mentioned earlier, I mentioned graphic design and also video editing. I also plan to go into business. Like,
you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, an entrepreneur. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So are you aware that there are, opportunities for that aspect? NDE provides that. There's also room for grants and all of that.
Yeah. Which they are actually being implemented, but not fully aware about the whole process and how to go about everything.
Okay, can you pass the mic to Divine Favor? Divine Favor, I like your name. Because everywhere you go, of course, favor will follow you.
Sure.
All right, so Divine Favor, for you as a young woman, what skills are you taking advantage of? You told us earlier that you're already picking some, but beyond, your youth service, what next for you? There are a lot of opportunities there, especially in the aspect of taking those skills seriously, because it's no longer about the white-collar job.
Okay. So aside serving, I'm a VA, virtual assistant, which is the tech industry. So talking about skills, there are so many skills in the tech industry that people are taking advantage of. But we need the government to invest in these sectors, because this is where the youth strive, like the tech industry, the digital industry, and the creative industry. These are where people put in skills, learn skills, and we get money from there, which most people are working remotely.
Okay,
so that is where
if I'll come in there, are you aware that this administration is showing a lot of interest in digital skills? Are you aware of the 3MTT?
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay. So are you leveraging on that opportunity? Are you looking ahead of that?
Yes, I'm working towards that, as well as also other youths are also taking advantage of it and applying. So we're all looking forward to a better development in the digital sector.
What would you say is your challenge?
Well, what I would say is my challenge is, being a remote worker, when applying to some certain countries, there's a restriction being a Nigerian. So once you apply and they get to know you're Nigerian, you're off the work limit. So that's the challenge we remote workers working from Nigeria are actually having.
So it's time to look inward and ensure that you use your skill positively to better the country.
Yes.
Amira, you want to share your thoughts with us?
Well, apart from my skill as a ghostwriter, I also learned. I'm also into baking. So having those 2 skills at hand, when I'm done with my service, I look forward to keep on writing as a ghostwriter, and if it's possible, like Victor said, he wants to be an entrepreneur. So if I can put my baking skills to use too, and become an entrepreneur too, have my own business, I think it's going to work out for me too.
Okay, we have Mr. Kefas Dogonyaro here. He's the SSA to the president, NURTW on media. Earlier we had some members from your association. So in the aspect of, working with the government to ensure that the infrastructural drive that they are pursuing, it's in synergy with transport workers like yourself. What are your thoughts?
When this government come on board, we are pleased to be happy that the infrastructure, like the road networks that affect our sector, is being put in place. I travel a lot across the roads. The roads are being put into construction. Like now, in some years past, Kaduna, Abuja, Kano, we had a Herculean tax to travel to places like Kaduna. But 2 weeks ago, I came back from Sokoto to Abuja here. The roads are being fixed, and we are happy, and we hope the government will do more to fix these roads. When you go to the south-south, in some years past, the roads were about like from Enugu to Port Harcourt. It was an Herculean tax. But this time around, the roads are being fixed, and we hope if these roads are fixed, the transportation at least the wearing of tires will be reduced. The wearing of engines will be reduced. Accidents will be reduced on our highways. And our commuters and our members will feel free to apply the roads, and things will work well for Nigerians.
But you know, governance is a collaborative effort.
Yes.
So what are you telling your members in the aspect of cooperating to ensure that these assets are protected and are not, destroyed on time because of negligence and all of that? What are you telling your members?
Yes, thank you very much. We are grassrooted from the local government to the city centers. We have all our members across the country, all the 74 local governments across. We have our members. And we do have educate them, because these roads are ours. They should apply it. They should work in synergy with government so that these roads will be maintained. Even at our parks, though we are tenants there, the local government have the parks. But in many occasions, we ask our members to put these parks in proper use, take maintenance, do sanitation, so that the local government will be happy to fix things for us. So we educate them for this infrastructure to be properly used, so that the government will continue to do business with us.
Indeed, because when there is accessibility, of course, there is a way for to promote economic activities across different states and, of course, regions. Madam Choma Egede, you've been with us since morning. We do appreciate your patience, but you play a very strategic role when we're talking women inclusion, especially women with disability. The SSA representative is here. What would you want to see get better that has not been done in the past? You commended some of the efforts, some of the initiatives. How can women, be carried along? He's here now. Your hope.
Yes, thank you. I just want to emphasize on the fact that we need more women in government. Women with disability. So it's not bad to have a woman with disability as a minister, even as a president. So we want more women to be included in that area.
Aside of elective positions, we're talking directly grassroots now. Women who are disadvantaged in the aspect of education, healthcare, and other social care.
Another part is the educational. The education system, I'll put it that way. Women should be encouraged. Women with disabilities should be encouraged to go to schools, and also they should also learn skills to also help them in managing their homes and as a form of finance for them.
You're not telling me. You're telling your hope.
Okay. Yes. So they should also encourage us to women to be involved in.
Indeed,
things that can help them.
Yeah, anything that has to do with women inclusion, I stand for it, and the Nigerian Television Authority stands for that. And Fisayo, we'll leave the conversation here for now. While I hand the baton back to you, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts you want to share from your own end.
Thank you very much, Ruth Aguele. We'll still come back to the town hall later, but we need to set the stage for some conversations. You know that of interest is the fact that in my panel, I have a member of opposition. Is a lawmaker, but from the labor extraction, to set the stage for the next set of conversations and perhaps to put in proper perspective some of the discussions we've had so far. Let's take this report. The federal government is driving transformation in the Nigerian oil and gas sector, aiming to revitalize the industry and attract investment. And since 2023, the government has implemented key reforms, including restructuring the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, now L, and issuing executive orders to provide fiscal incentives and reduce contracting costs. Lydia Sampson reports on the unveiling impacts of the ongoing reforms.
These reforms have spurred renewed investor confidence, with over $8 billion committed to offshore projects, sparking significant progress in local refining and gas infrastructure development. The federal government targets increasing crude oil production to over 2 million barrels per day and accelerating gas projects to boost energy security and economic growth. Key players are optimistic that these reforms are repositioning the industry on the right path.
If the oil price crashes, we have to automatically become more efficient if we want to continue to compete. We were witnesses to when oil price came to $10, $9. So we know that even just a few years ago, we know that it's a possibility. Are we planning for these scenarios?
Improve policies to make ease doing business, and we will continue to welcome that. We are always on hand, to partner and support the government.
Right now, we and NNPC will work together to make sure that there is going to be peace, there will be energy security, and we'll collaborate not only on downstream, even on upstream.
While challenges such as security in the Niger Delta remain, the sector shows signs of recovery and increased efficiency under Tinubu's leadership. The appointment of industry experts to lead NNPC Limited and the ongoing reforms is being applauded for putting Nigeria on a competitive spot globally in oil and gas.
We've started slowly to look at the system very surgically, to look at areas where there are excellence that we need to preserve, but also look at best practices around the world and begin to define our pathway towards growing to that new levels.
The Naira for crude policy aims to boost local refining by selling crude oil to domestic refineries in Naira. Experts believe this will go a long way in reducing reliance on foreign exchange and stabilize fuel prices.
I think the framework is there. It is good if you apply it, but there is a balance between foreign commitments and whether you can do the Naira for crude. But we need to produce more crude oil.
If efficiently implemented, industry players believe it will enhance Naira liquidity, support energy security, curb inflation, and insulate the economy from global market volatility. The policy promotes economic stability and affordable fuel for Nigerians. This is already reflecting in competitions in various petrol stations where petrol prices keeps fluctuating.
Gradually, it's fluctuating. It's probably reducing 10 naira, adding 10 naira, reducing 10 naira. What's the difference there?
For now, we don't experience queue now at all.
No, there is availability right now, but the issue is that it is still very, very expensive at 910 naira per liter.
The introduction of compressed natural gas is another energy mix changing the narrative.
This program is seen as one of the key achievements of Mr. President, so the opposition comes after it and then it becomes some kind of misinformation. You have to explain and re-explain yourself. And I think those are challenges.
But it's okay and economical something. The price is better than the fuel and it lasts longer.
I got my car converted long ago. You drive for say 150 kilometers, which the price of that gas is less than 3,500. And the equivalent amount of gas, of petrol in price that you use will probably be up to maybe 14,000, 15,000 naira. That is a direct, clear-cut advantage.
I recall that period. People will be like, we want to buy it for 2,000. Let there be fear. So as we speak, availability is what it matters most. People are happy that there's petrol for them to buy.
I really want to commend government for allowing private sector to come into the oil and gas businesses because it has relieved a lot of burden, stress.
Sometimes when I'm driving into the filling station, I always ask, do you think they have fuel in this filling station? And then you see the petrol attendants calling you to come in, and then you buy freely with ease.
Despite challenges of inadequate CNG stations, the vision endures from gas to prosperity, from blue flames to renewed hope, a nation's future.
Thank you, Lydia Sampson, for that exhaustive report from the oil and gas sector. Nigeria has relied on this sector for long. Its main resource, powering its economy. I have a member of the House of Reps Committee on Finance still with me, a member of Labour, or Professor Paul Umachi, Honorable Prof. Paul Umachi. Which one do you prefer? Honorable. Anyway, so with all of the above. Well, let's start this. One would want to look at this before we even look at it surgically and the impact on your constituents and all that. From the perspective of you being an opposition party, you've seen what the president laid out in terms of his expectations. Some tough decisions that he made on the very first day on the job. What would be your comment at this time, and also efforts to stabilize the ship and to make sure that society continues to move on an even keel?
I would put it this way. I would just oppose it with what happened in the first during the Buhari regime, when he came up and said the first thing he said that I'm not for anybody, I'm for everybody. And when President Tinubu came on, when he said my government is not for the faint-hearted. So if you put that the other way, the other man has justified, he has actually justified his statement by bold reforms. At the moment, his government was faced with the age-long challenges, yet that others merely hinted but never did anything about it. And his bold attempt to embrace reforms for national recovery, most of the time he has pursued it with a lot of vigor. Though painful, but it's also towards ensuring that Nigerians actually have the conversation they have been running away from. Because I actually feel that there are certain conversations Nigerians need to do, but they're not doing that. And that is about fiscal responsibility and sustainability too. And also fiscal sustainability. We also need to have things that are sustainable. We also need to have fiscal responsibility that will ensure the future of the children. This hasn't been done, but now it's been done based on this reform. Could you say, also, let me bring in also from my own perspective as a legislator. The legislators have also ensured that these things work by not only being partners in governance, they have also ensured that there's cooperation in some legislature that had been abandoned due to quarrels, like the student loan that is now passed. There's a tax bill that is now passed, electricity reform bill. These things would not be possible without certain cooperations with the executive. But, however, not abandoning their trust at the same time. So I would say that at the moment, the bold reforms are actually working. They have not, maybe some of them have not actually trickled down, but also you will see things.
Let me take you from the point of trickling down in terms of ensuring that a policy percolates to the people. There are tiers of government. For instance, the windfall, or can we say the cake that is being baked now is bigger, having removed the albatross that has been the fuel subsidy. Now there's more to share. But at the state level, when you interact with your constituents, have those people felt the impact in terms of the fact that the states now having more to spend as against what it used to be, more to spend to impact the lives of people, to execute better projects, to increase salaries, across the board? Have they been able to do that, penetrating to the people and letting them understand this is, why this was done? And can you see now that perhaps, you have more?
Yeah, I would say, actually, though, I would suppose that, I would say, at the moment, it doesn't be long. Let me just say, at the moment, it's about breaking inertia. And the first 2 years, let me call it a time of breaking the inertia in performance. And maybe the next 2 years should also be about improvement and growth, and also managing the growth, the terms. But also, in the other tiers of government, because most times the focus is on the federal government, which shouldn't be, because every other government is being taken care of at the end of the month with the allocation, rather even a larger portion of cake. But the accountability has not been that much with the other affairs of the government, which the people should also hold accountable first before the
and interrogate the spend.
Yeah, and interrogate the spend, especially. You should be able to know how much comes to the state, how much comes to your local government. These are not completely being done. However, I would allude that to the difficulties in having independent legislation in the state level and also the local government level. Vis-a-vis the autonomy of the local government that has also been facing a lot of brick walls. But having said that, if I come to the federal, I would also say that the current administration is not doing badly at all, because I would say that they are faced with the activities of promise and performance. But the law, those reforms has to move a little step before you can see it in the public. I have that belief that probably at the long run it will get to trickle down very well, because they are faced now with promise and performance. They are faced now with vision and verification. The people need to verify, is the vision also this way or the other way? Having said that, there is a lot of things in the public that have not been actually taken care of. So the discussions we're having now, and the discussion the public are having now, is that everybody applauded removal of subsidy. And I also think that over time, I said from your perspective of viewers or contributors in the last, this report, you will see that people are happy that petroleum attendants are calling to them and are hustling to take each member coming in, each motorist coming in. But also, they want the price to be down. But most importantly, first, we've seen that there's availability. But what we see is not to see accountability in terms of bringing down the price. Hopefully, in the long run, there will be more refineries coming up vis-a-vis that of the states. And when the competition comes, price will naturally come down. So that's what I expect.
All right. You are wearing 3 caps for me today. Mm-hmm. You are an academician, a professor of repute. Yeah. You are a lawmaker representing your people, so you can, influence the making of laws in certain, issues, on certain issues that, that are of importance to you. Yeah. And then, thirdly, you are of the opposition. Yeah. So we have 3 things that you will use perhaps as a ruler or a compass to check out what has been happening as far as this administration is concerned. Yeah. In terms of the interventions, in terms of the perceptions, and in terms of perhaps sectorally what you have seen as a legislator, some of the interviews you've had or sessions you've had with members of the executive, where would you want to say, you expect more interventions in this area, or perhaps in this area they are doing well, in terms of sectors?
Oh, well, let me just put first, let me start from where I expect interventions. I usually start from that to the other one. The area I expect intervention in terms of education first, because you can't grow more than your infrastructure. You can't grow. You can't expect a student better than the teacher grow. It is the product of the teacher that you see in students. I will want improvement in the education. I will want improvement, though it's also happening now, but they should also take into consideration the inflation rate with vis-a-vis payment of teachers and lecturers. But also, I want everything hinged on security. When people are secure, I remember in 1995, I traveled from Lagos to Sokoto without any hindrance. I wasn't thinking about it. So if Nigerians will want that life back. Because when you don't have security, you don't have your life. You are restricted from what you do. Job unemployment has also persisted. But I also know that if things they have done, that the current government has boldly done, like in terms of introducing student loan scheme, it has just started, and it will also, that's a thing that you see that are trickling down. Maybe has not gone that so wide, but it is also a very good innovation. The tax bill that has also been passed, the electricity bill that has also been passed, all this is necessitates continued infrastructure. He has also done continued infrastructure, like in terms of the roads, where he has also continued the road done by the predecessor without abandoning that, taking bold steps in those aspects. There's continuity in the road infrastructure. There's continuity in the electricity infrastructure. There's also continuity in terms of making sure that the security comes, or agri-infrastructure. He has also created livestock ministry. These are, because that shows that there is a bit of emergency to make sure that food security. Because part of the problem you also have now is that people cannot go to their farms as they should do. So, because a nation that doesn't have food security is also bound to have a lot of issues. So, I think the agriculture, there should be more of agri-care universities. There's also a health aspect. The minister has also been doing a lot of reforms with the administration. So these areas is also doing things. We should also link research to production in the university. We have not been doing that. And that's an aspect that needs critical mention, that we must also make sure that our people do that.
Your colleagues in the academy have said it, that there's a valley of debt between research institutes and industry. That is the town and the gown, they called it, that this handshake must be firmed up, especially, in the science and technology sector, to make sure that, commercializable research is that linkage, that synergy between, the manufacturers and, of course, the researchers, so that domestic manufacturing can grow. But let's look at something else. Well, we say a lot of Nigeria's wealth is, in its resources, and we have this special report which says that the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development was unbundled by President Tinubu on assumption of office. We will look at, those ministries and intervention there. Of course, you have the Office of Solid Minerals as well, Development, and of course the Ministry of Steel Development. This decision explains the President's commitment to explore the full potential of the sector. 2 years after the creation of the Solid Minerals Development Ministry, how far, so far? Mere Ogidi is not a mere reporter, he digs deep.
From a forgotten child to a child of recognition and prominence. How? A leadership takes the bold step to unearth the earth and unveil its hidden riches. For 2 years and counting, on solid ground, the Solid Minerals Ministry stands. Through the guidance of President Tinubu and the obedience of Minister Dele Alake and his lieutenants. From paltry 6 billion naira revenue in 2023 up to 38 billion naira in 2024. And in the first quarter of 2025, 14 billion naira already in the account. What is the miracle?
We had to computerize the system from the analog system to the new system. It has jumped our revenue astronomically. What we used to generate in a year, we now even generate it in a month.
A serious calculation of the contribution that this sector has made into the GDP in the last 1 year, you'll be shocked.
Investors' confidence renewed. Lithium factories in Kaduna, Niger border, Abuja, and in Nasarawa states set for inauguration this year. While Gemstone Training Center in Abuja integrating youth to the labor market, thanks to the prized local value addition policy of the ministry.
I tell you for a fact that money can't buy everything that we've learned here, and we're still learning. So it has really been a wonderful experience. So
before they got to this place, they were giving starter packs. So it's not just, okay, we train them, we throw them into the market. They were giving starter packs.
Then Africa will be extricated from the shackles of poverty and degradation. Thank you very much.
Handshakes within and across the African continent, taking Nigeria's mining industry to the global market, focusing on geodata generation to boost exploration for a more transparent and less cumbersome industry.
We have over 10 brands, Chinese electric vehicles. We would like to bring them to Nigeria to have them to produce locally. Because by doing this, China is going to have a stronger partner in Africa. Yeah. When Nigeria becomes stronger, China is becoming better.
Yeah. We want a situation where our local lithium here, the raw minerals, can also be used to produce these batteries locally here, and then go the whole hog, produce the electric vehicles. So we need this technology transferred to in Nigeria, and it can only happen via these companies, Chinese companies that come here to operate.
Dele Alake initiated the Squad, that is the mining marshals, and they are taking the fight to the enemies then in the thick, dreaded forest, recovering sites to the licensed owners, dormant licenses revoked, royalties and fees reviewed upwards, and illegal miners showing some level of repentance as 250 cooperative societies formed and set to benefit from the federal government financial benevolence in the industry. It is a work in progress, and Alake hopes for the best with the right funding as he continues to mine for more opportunities to reposition the mining industry.
They say if you do your mining very well, your dining will also be robust. So let's look at that. Soon we'll look at that. And of course, Deji Makinde will also be discussing about these sectors with his guests as well. But we have Professor Yinka Omorogbe, Professor of Energy Law, joining us via Zoom. She was also a former secretary of the NNPC. Earlier we showed a report on the energy sector as well as the oil and gas sector, and some of the efforts to rejig the sector for optimal performance. Talking about your own intervention as far as these first 2 years are concerned, just give us perhaps a professorial but cursory look at the sector so far, and what would be your first intervention today. Prof, if you can unmute your system so that we can hear you.
Thank you very much. I didn't realize it was off. Okay, if I was to do an assessment of the sector at this point in time, I don't think I'd really be able to say that much, because we first, if you look at the sector in the beginning, we had a GMD who was there for like 6 years. He just left recently, but the GMD Mele Kyari was a carryover right from prior to the Petroleum Industry Act, which we've all been waiting for, up until this time. We saw a few changes, but I don't know if I would call it changes more than really cosmetic. But right now, we have got a new management team in NNPC right now. And there have been different changes. There's a new board, there's a new managing director, and they're just starting to work. I really believe that one should really be able to assess the sector properly and see how well they've done or how well they've not done after they've been able to do a little bit of work. But if you look at the entire petroleum industry over the years, not much has been happening, unfortunately. We took too long to pass the Petroleum Industry Act, and now we're taking too long to fully implement it. In the meantime, the world is not waiting for us.
Prof, let's now take a pill from your medical cabinet. What pill can we be taking now, especially for this sector, which has been perhaps the eagle that on whose wings we've been flying for years? What are the low-hanging fruits that we can quickly grab in terms of the reforms we need to do, and where you expect us to be in terms of our potentials and where we are?
I think the first pill we need to take is the pill that tells everybody that time is not waiting for us. Nobody is waiting for us. There is no time. There is no alternative. There are lots of other very lucrative zones all over the world, including Africa. So against that, I think that we need to realize that the time is now for us to truly become that which we're to become. We have a Petroleum Industry Act right now, which has not been implemented. We do not have a clear delineation between the different roles of the industry. Particularly, we have a downstream authority that has not totally been able to do all that it has been established to do. We have NNPC that is commercial and is now coming into its own. We have got what was the inspectorate before and is now the commission that is trying to, again, come into its own. But we have a tire bill that is now an act which has not been implemented. So as a result, the principal issues that were supposed to be dealt with, which was a demarcation of the sectors between policy, regulatory, and commercial, still remain to be done. So the pill we have to take is that the time is now. Everything that we're talking about should have been done yesterday. And so we actually need to move on. We need to have functional refineries. That is very, very important. We need to become a hub whereby we are supplying petroleum to Africa. We need to be the West African hub. We don't need to be the place with comatose refineries. It's good that they're apparently rehabilitating a refinery, but I'm just wondering whether is it a functioning refinery? I guess we really need to know that. Do you rehabilitate a refinery that is not functioning, or do you just basically admit that and start afresh? I don't know. To what extent are we encouraging the new refineries to really establish and come into their own? We have Dangote, it's the major one, it's the elephant in the room, and it's been able to do a lot, but it has fought a lot of battles and is still fighting. So what are we doing? What do we need? We need a viable downstream sector. Viable downstream sector with the refineries functioning, with all the different downstream industries that we need in Nigeria to make us functional and truly developed. We need them to be around. We need full encouragement, full incentives, full backing. And to do that, you have to make sure that you have strengthened regulators and a strengthened, generally, a strengthened industry as a whole. And of course, we need a substantive minister of petroleum. I think those things will be, it will be a lot easier if we actually do have a substantive minister of petroleum so that things are not unduly concentrated in the presidency.
All right, Prof, thank you for your first intervention. You listen to Prof as well, but Ayo, let me hand over to you, to your panel, and perhaps we distill some of the thoughts from your panel as well. Ayo Makinde.
Thanks so much, Fisayo. Interesting conversation that you were having there with Professor Namchi on the need to really get citizens engaged and bring down the dividends of most of these achievements of the government to the people and make them feel the vibe and the breeze of the administration, the Renewed Hope agenda. Still with me here, I have Amsfree Ajanaku and also Suleiman Danzaki. And then shortly before we went to the town hall and back to Fisayo, we're trying to set the tempo for some discussion. But let me kick off now that we are back again. Amsfree, we're taking a look at the 2 years of Mr. President, and there's one thing that strikes me, perhaps because I have a bit of bias when it comes to covering it. It's the digital economy, which the World Economic Forum projects will take over the conventional economy that we have. I'm talking about digital skills, artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. If we take a look at what we've done in the last 2 years, 3 million tech talents, the emergence of data privacy laws in the country, the protection of consumers and everyone in the country, their rights. Are we laying the solid foundation? Should we be at the foundation stage? Are we getting more people to key into it? Or do you think Nigerians still don't really understand it yet?
Yes, so it's a mix of very good outcomes. And then, of course, again, that last point you made about a lot of Nigerians still not understanding the very massive potentials in this area. So I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu started on a very, very good note in terms of the peak, how he picked the the minister for that position. The minister was not a maybe a loyal Tinubu person from the beginning. He was actually a critic of the government. But of course, the president recognized his track record as someone who has led the incubation phases of various digital initiatives, hubs and all of that. And the president simply said, this is not about party. This should be about country. This is not about the individual. This is about the person's capacity to deliver. And in that context, I must say that the minister has done a lot of spade work in the last 2 years. The spade work in terms of putting in place the kind of policy framework that we require to be able to compete and to be able to leverage on the digital economy to produce results and create jobs and bring about innovation in our economy. And for that, I think that's one area we can say that this 2 years assessment has been of a high score because if you do not have those policy frameworks in place, if you do not have a strategy in place in terms of how you want to tap this very big, very massive area in terms of the economy, digital economy, then you may not really approach it from a strategic point of view. You may just, be going at it from, different areas that you don't really mind the result and get the results ultimately. We see what the Chinese did with DeepSeek. We see the fact that they were able to actually recalibrate, the whole race for AI dominance, with just that level of innovation that their youths, their startups were able to come up with. And so the fact that Nigeria is even part of the top 60 globally, according to the UN, is something we should celebrate. And then the fact also that Nigeria is at a point where we are developing our own unique language models for AI. Because of course, with AI, there are, different biases, depending on, who is developing it. And the fact that Nigeria is looking inward to do some indigenous work in that area is really very commendable. But having said that, there is now that whole reality of creating the nexus between the outcomes we are seeing at the level of policy and the spade work that has been put in place, and then connecting it to our citizens. And when we say citizens, I think it was earlier on we were having that discussion around the youth, the role of the youth and the opportunities for the youth. And of course, the youth itself is not a monolithic demographic. It's not a demographic that is monolithic in the sense that, you can just say, okay, youth, it covers for everybody. There are youths in the rural areas. Do they know about AI? Do they know about the potentials of AI? Do they know about the commercial business, benefits they can, use it for? Some of our youths use AI for misinformation, for example.
Absolutely correct.
You go on social media, you see AI being used to reduce the integrity of information. You see AI being used to crack jokes, do comedy and things. In fact, I saw the other day a skit of a very popular politician. They used AI to imitate the voice, and then they used it to misinform people, some in comedy spaces. But in terms of business and innovation, we're seeing AI already playing a role in the banking sector, in different high job sectors. So how do we want to, really bring our youth, especially in already underserved communities? Because we already have a very huge digital divide between probably youth who have access to infrastructure in the urban areas and the rural areas. So for our organization, for example, we are looking at these opportunities to be able to take the message to the grassroots, to be able to take these opportunities to the grassroots, to be able to curate information in a way that somebody in a rural area can say, okay, I can innovate in this way within the limits of the resources I have. I can use AI in this way to promote my business. I don't have to do a manual, do business in a manual way that, is already, extinct and all of that. So I think these are very important conversations we need to have. But the final point I think I need to make is the fact that in this innovation, we're already seeing like some kind of institutional response to some of the breaches in the sector. Yeah. For example, we had the issue of some form of accountability for all of these companies in digital space that abuse the space in terms of data breaches and all of that. We have seen fines being slammed on some companies, and there's a debate that is ongoing on those issues that you have to be accountable, just like the way you'll be fined if you're in Europe and America when you engage in data breaches. Then in the same way, we're getting to that point in Nigeria where people need to start asking questions. And if we interrogate these things very well, the digital economy, creates opportunity even for those of us that are in the media space, NTA, all the TV stations, all the people creating quality content to inform the people. AI and the digital economy present very, we've even seen some TV stations bringing in AI anchors. And this would also translate into revenue streams. And, that whole governance architecture of it would definitely be instrumental in helping us to ensure that the benefits of all of these digital opportunities, it goes around such that it's not just something that is an exclusive preserve of the few. But I think maybe this is the real final point now, which is now the question of digital rights. The question of digital rights, is basically a question of the same rights that you are enjoying, whether the rights given to you by the UN Charter or the rights given to you by the Universal Declaration on Human Rights or even our Nigerian Constitution. Those rights being violated because maybe people are using, bringing up or using those rights online. So that is the entire gamut of digital rights violations. So we have seen an upsurge in that dimension in terms of arrest of people who give dissenting opinions online. We have seen in law enforcement using things like the Cyber Crime Act. And this is one area of advocacy in our pillar of information integrity, which we also have been talking about, that there is a need for respect for the rights of the digital rights of Nigerians, not only by the companies that are providing those services, but also by the institutions of the state itself, so that there's the rule of law, due process, fair hearing, and all of those components. We don't also encourage the use of these digital opportunities for activities that undermine the public peace and the public cohesion. So we also want to be able to sensitize people in those areas. So in this sector, I believe the president and his team can look at their scorecard and give themselves a pat on the back, but not to rest on their oars, because there is still a lot to be done in the sector.
Well, there's just a session I attended not long ago. It's interesting to know there's a member of parliament in the building, possibly who might do a touchline discussion with him after this broadcast. But let me come back to Danzaki. I've been to Lagos so many times, and when you hear NURTW for so many years, there is this picture that you have about members of the union. But we take a look at how things have changed in the last few years and in the last 2 years, where people are now getting certified, getting educated, getting degrees, changing the narrative. Before the emergence of electronic cab system in the country, without mentioning names, there were NURTW members, there were NURTW cars, buses doing things. The innovation of these e-cab system challenged the existing protocol. I could sit down here now, order for a ride, and I get to wherever I'm going. How come it's been a bit difficult for NURTW with the amount of members they have across the country, with the emergence of the digital economy we're talking about, and with the vast opportunities? You rightly mentioned that the administration of President Bola Tinubu gave about 1 million kits to NURTW. Why is there no connection with this largesse and technological innovation?
Really, we are still on. Like I mentioned earlier, I think that the Bola Tinubu administration have tried is somebody who is a progressive. I'm not boasting. I know his attitude. I know him as far back as 1982. I know he's progressive. He is always trying to see that he is close to the common man. But I think that he has to change the cabinet. The cabinet really, they are not helping him. I know him, he knows the importance of NURTW, like I said, since 1982. He gave us a lot of assistance. I think right from that time, I know that he was prognosing the politics to see that he has invested so many in human capacity. So therefore, I think that I remain, if any, the only person in the labor cycle who attended the 1982 delegate conference in Kano, where Hassan Sumono was elected for the second time. So we have seen a lot of people from the ASU, from other segments, who are progressive. They call themselves comrades, but immediately they go to a lawmaking or they become governors. They change their attitude. So therefore, a lot of people doesn't have even the courage to talk about the common man. Immediately when they have their own label, immediately they go after label. They commit a suicide. So the issue of the digitalization of transportation, when people are talking about the fuel issue, price of fuel, fuel is 1 out of 10 components of transportation. And I will give you something that you'll be surprised. NURTW, as we are seeing in Lagos, we have over 15,000 branches in Nigeria. And the skill acquisition, which I was part of the ILO Convention number 56, which they have agreed the skill acquisitions in the road transport, most especially the articulated vehicles. And it is remain our own way of that skill acquisition. That we all agree Nigeria is part of that resolution, they are part of the treaty, that any articulated vehicle should be engaged in any sector as a diploma holder. Forget about the language. We see Chinese people, they come here, they don't even speak our local dialect. They don't speak English, but we recognize them as engineers. Italians came here, but simply because we don't have the attitude to maintain our local languages, we regarded anybody who cannot speak English as a common man. And another important thing, NURTW has gone very far. The NUT, Nigerian Union of Teachers, Academic Staff Union of University, University Commission, all we meet their imagination. We have a study center of Open University in our office. Today, we are the only industrial union in Nigeria who provide that opportunity for education. And also, you, even if you want to add more of your qualification, I will lead you to our office. It's one of the fast-growing center. So about the education, we are spending a lot. About issue of the transportation too. No matter whatever you are talking anywhere in the globally, if you don't talk about the transportation, you are not serious. Ghana, let me wait a bit. Right. Ghana, when they want to revolutionize the transportation, their Rawlings use Ghana Private Transport Union to ask them to go anywhere to look at the vehicle which is going to be for the good use and for good road of Ghana. I used to go there and deliver some lectures that go anywhere and see the good vehicle that is good. I will be the guarantor. Government is the surety. That is why the Ghana Private Transport Union is the best. I don't want to always referring to America and England. No. In Africa today, in South Africa, they have the best policy in transportation. If you are referring to which country that have a good policy, is Pretoria transport policy, where everybody was invited before the policy is promulgated, the NUJ, the student, and everybody. And before South Africa increased 1 hour in transportation, until that council converge. The government will tell them the reason why we are this, why we are this, why we are this. And the workers will be convinced that transportation is going to be increased. Then if the need arises, they talk to the government about their wages and salaries. But in Nigeria, like I say, government doesn't have 5% investment in road transportation. So you look at it, that the government is not making their people for movement. If you cannot move freely, I hope that Tinubu administration will declare revolution in road transportation about the road, about the confinement of the vehicle, importation of the vehicles, about the safety. Many people are seeing the eyes of government. They don't talk about what is actually, whether you like it or not, if there is accident, seriously or unseriously, there must be a good road first. In security, there must be a good road first. In terms of economy, there must be a good road first. Then before you execute what you feel that is a policy.
Well, Suleiman Danzaki, I appreciate your objective analysis. That's why it's a midterm review of the performance of the president. Surely so many things will be put into consideration moving forward to really get the Nigeria over dreams. Let me now quickly cross over to Prof. I know Prof has been floating via Zoom out there in Benin. Prof, one of the key priority areas of President Bola Tinubu is unlocking energy opportunities and energy resources, renewable energy and everything. With your expertise, sometimes when these things go out there to the public space, it sounds a bit alien. How do we get Nigerians to believe in unlocking energy resources? The NNPCL that now has a new leadership, to believe they are for them, and every policy that they take or every decision that they take, it's in the interest of Nigerians against the current narrative that we have in the country today. Perhaps I think, Prof, you need to unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I think it's sort of a multifaceted question. What I think is, if you look historically, you'll see that clearly the president came in wanting to make a difference in the oil and gas industry. So he started with a very bold beginning, which became turbulent. Right in his speech, he talked about removal of the subsidy, and a lot of us believed in that was the best thing. We still do that because the subsidy was opaque, obscure. It allowed for a lot of scams, but it impacted very, very negatively. And I think that is probably what led to some of this skepticism that you're talking about. Then by the time you look again, you'll find that without going back into what I've said before, you look at reform, you see that the Petroleum Industry Act, everything was slow. There were some great things happening in a sense. There was some implementation of the act. We have the host community trust funds that are in operation now, but not much change, because the real change should have been seen from NNPC working differently. So what I'm trying to say is that for the people to believe that something is happening, there have to be some major differences that people can feel that are not differences that impact negatively on their pockets, because right now there's so much happening. We had the issues with the currency reform, which has its pros and cons, but which impacted dreadfully on everybody, impacted dreadfully on payments in the sector as well, in every single area. So I think the problem is so many things have mixed signals. And then when you look into the oil industry again, you can say, okay, you look at it, what's really changed? We're supposed to be producing 2 million, I think, is our potential, what we should be producing. We're producing closer to half of that. We still have the vandalism, we still have the insecurity, we still have those threats. So what really is happening? Then when you look at investment, whether you know or you don't know, what you can see is people fleeing Nigeria in the real sense. You do have some people coming in, but what makes a partner that has been in Nigeria for decades start flying out? In other sectors, that is happening. But that's happening in the oil sector, where you find that everybody's flying out from onshore and trying to stay, stay offshore, so to speak, whilst they're going into other countries. It's not that they're not going onshore into other countries, but not in Nigeria. So the problem is mixed signals. The problem is, yes, in the downstream, it's still not functioning as it should. And like I always like to say, that's a major area where Nigerians will feel impact in so many ways, in the spillover effects in the different industries that will come up, that will translate into jobs. So there are many, many issues. What we do need is to have something concrete that impacts upon us in such a way that we can feel it, such as clearly having an issue. It's good now that we have the Dangote refinery, but whether it's going to be attributed to the president, whatever positive thing we see right now with that, depends. So there's a lot of perception there. Reality. The reality is that the shoe is pinching very often with in Nigeria. So it's mixed feelings. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of confusion right now, to put it mildly. And of course, when you're talking about energy transition, it's the same thing. There's a bit of confusion. There are some promising signals, but we need to make the signals translate into something that is real and concrete.
Thank you for your contribution out there to bring in your analyses, of course, and your projection as to how things can get better as we take a look at the first 2 years of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you once again, Prof.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, having spoken with Prof, and then well-loaded analyses of some of the changes and how to get things better in terms of narratives of how citizens believe the energy sector and the petroleum industry can get better. I perceive something is cooking right there at the town hall with Ruth, and possibly Ruth, don't let the aroma get too busy. Take it off from here.
Thank you very much, Ayodeji. You perceived right, because when Prof was speaking, I had a chit-chat with the SA media to the president, national president of the NURTW, and his concerns was also on the energy aspect. So let's just quickly get to him. Mr. Kefas Dogonyaro, we know that Nigeria is blessed with different resources, but unlocking that and harnessing the energy sector, especially in the aspect of gas. We're just having a chit-chat behind camera where you talked about having more CNG buses, vehicles for road transport workers. So tell us your thoughts, please.
Thank you very much. When this government come on board, when they introduce this CNG bus kind of a thing, the NURTW key into this project. Our BOT chairman, the president, ran some councils to initiate this CNG buses kind of a thing. And it's very, very cheaper and economical. And what we want the government to do, we appeal to government to provide enough CNG buses across the country. Maybe all tiers of government should key into this project, so that Nigerians will have a sea of sight of this transportation problem. We are in the motor parks. When you go to the motor parks, you see people coming, paying huge money for transportation. When you go to the filling station, the whole money is gone. But if this CNG is provided and buses are provided, even in the Abuja city center here, people coming from Yanya, Mararaba, Suleja, they will have ease transportation to come to work and go back to their various places. We appeal to all tiers of government, especially the federal government, to provide enough CNG buses at affordable distance so that Nigerians will have a relief. Then the economy will be boosted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just hold the mic, Mr. Kefers. It's good you're talking your own concern, but I'm sure you're aware that the federal government entered a partnership with the NURTW on the CNG vehicles, you know, converting for them, having the conversion at a very subsidized rate. But let's get this report from our transport correspondent. There's a lot, you know, that has been said happening in the transportation sector, but let's hear from Ladi Bala, who is our correspondent in the transportation sector. What has been unlocked? How is the navigation doing? Let's check that out.
Robust and effective transportation systems are the backbone of economic growth and societal development. No nation can achieve significant progress in social, economic, and political advancement without a comprehensive transport system.
Transportation is the artery through which the live stream of all economic activities runs. Without it, economic freezes. Immediately transportation shut down, economy is in comatose. So to boost economy, you have to boost your transportation.
That is why President Bola Tinubu's administration has prioritized transforming the Nigerian transport sector. The Federal Ministry of Transportation, through the Nigerian Railway Corporation, has embarked on revitalizing the railway system. The Abuja-Kaduna rail line has been refurbished and expanded, while the Lagos-Ibadan rail line, Africa's first standard gauge double-track railway, spans 156 kilometers with 9 stations. The completion and commissioning of the Port Harcourt-Aba rail line is another milestone, boosting economic activities from the southeast to other parts of the country. The Kaduna-Kano-Maradi railway projects are at 50% completion, and efforts are underway to utilize the Port Harcourt-Maiduguri rail line for the Northeast Corridor.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR has directed the ministry to continue with the execution of all the projects under railway modernization, from Lagos to Maradi, from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. The idea is to link the eastern and the western port to the hinterland. So all the impression is to be addressed to the members of the National Assembly so that they will tell Nigerians what they have seen and what is their impression on the project.
We have appropriated huge amount of money as far back as year 2022, a supplementary budget of 2023, a supplementary budget of 2024. And we are here to see what has been done with the huge amount of money already appropriated by the National Assembly. So far, we are impressed with the level of mobilization. The equipment we have seen are first-class equipment, higher technology equipment being deployed for this purpose.
In recent years, the federal government has provided free train rides during festive periods and 50% discounted transport fares, a widely applauded initiative.
I feel safer entering the train from Port Harcourt to Aba, more like entering the road. Like you can see, I'm having my 2 kids here. I can't take them to that road. That's why we decided. Imagine we came all the way from Iwofe Road down here to come and enter this train. It's far cheap, it's more economical, and it's more safer.
This is so comfortable, and there is no hold up, nothing to bridge the movement on the way. So I think that alone is lively for me.
A flagship initiative of this administration is the transition from petrol to compressed natural gas, easing costs and providing an eco-friendly alternative energy source.
A lot have been done in time of CNG. The first thing is to ensure safety. We put in place accreditation program where workshops that we do conversion are accredited. And today we have accredited workshops across the whole country. Like in this 2025, we are going to train about 1,200 technicians.
As President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda marks 2 years, there are indications that the Federal Ministry of Transportation will continue to play a vital role in shaping, expanding, and improving Nigeria's transportation sector to compete with advanced countries.
And there you have it. Of course, you know, expanding and upgrading road networks is one aspect, of course, that will propel economic activities when you're talking accessibility and connectivity. Ayodeji, I'll get back to you in a question I'm going to answer first. And the only thing I feel sad about is that we didn't take advantage of the free train ride, but I'm sure we'll take advantage this year because it will happen again, right? So, but let me get back to you. Want to respond quickly?
Oh, well, surely there's so many corridors being opened up by the Transport Ministry. It will be interesting to know when the rail system from Lagos through Abuja, Kaduna, Kano is virtually completed, and then possibly through Maiduguri back to Onisha, Port Harcourt. I would like to go on a break and just have that cruise and enjoy myself in my great country, Nigeria.
You bet. We have a deal, right?
Yeah,
okay.
surely.
But let me get back to the conversation here. Mr. Theophilus Odawudu. I will learn this name before the end of our session. As a program officer, you told us earlier that you've been working in synergy with organizations that project the rights and protect the rights of persons with disability. Accessibility. You know, we just talked about transportation and road networks. Accessibility is is one of the major concerns that the law for persons with disability is pushing for implementation of it. Is that part of your advocacy?
Yes, thank you very much. It's interesting to hear the conversation around transportation and accessibility. For persons with disabilities, the law, that's the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018, did provide for transportation, buses, trains, planes, and every other means of transportation to be made accessible for persons with disabilities. Often when progress is made in this field, we do not look into disability access. When buses are imported or trains are brought in for people to use, most of the time they do not come in fitted with accessibility features. For example, people on wheelchair find it difficult to use the buses. And have you seen the doors to some of these trains? Wheelchairs can't go through them. So it's difficult for persons with disabilities to also benefit. But in other advanced countries, you have provisions for all of these. We see buses, we see our colleagues on wheelchair being provided with electronic ramps. So they are actually vehicles that are designed for all of this. We just need to prioritize disability access. So yes, I work with organizations of persons with disabilities to create advocacy, both to government ministries and agencies, on how to ensure that the transport sector is accessible for persons with disabilities, and we also try to create awareness to like the NURTW and other transport unions to ensure that their members are also enlightened on the right of persons with disabilities to movement, to transport, and to access, because it's very important that persons with disabilities are able to move from one point to the other like every other person in order to carry out their business. That is the only way we can build an inclusive society.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Theophilus. Olushola David, your concern earlier is that young people, persons with disability like yourself, even though you're not a young man anymore because of your gray hair, but at least you're standing in the gap for them. You know, you're promoting that advocacy for them, for young people with disability to be carried along, especially in skills. Your concern was in skills. And earlier, Ayodeji and the panelists were talking about young people not taking advantage of skills, especially digital skills. Share your thoughts for us.
Oh, thank you. Let me say this, I'm a young man.
Okay, noted. He's a young man.
Okay, now, coming to skills. Oftentimes we see on televisions and social media that young people with disability are giving skills acquisition, training, interventions, all sorts. My concern is it doesn't get to the grassroots. How about young people with disabilities in the rural area? Even those in the unbanked centers, at times the cluster heads are not being carried along to ensure that everybody is included. What we are asking for is more interventions, more skill acquisition, more trainings, so that young people with disability can actually effectively use their skills Yeah, we have different disability.
Yes.
For me, I'm on a wheelchair, but my hand is active, my brain is active. I'm a sport commentator, I'm a graphic designer. So we want more young people to have access to this intervention and skill acquisition. More so in the rural area, people who can't come to urban centers. How do we get to them to train them so that they can be useful? It will amaze you that the figures we are still collating. We have over 30 million disability people, and 15% of that are young people. So look at the world we can tap into if we garner these young people and then train them effectively. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Larry Oloyede, you're not a young man, but you're working for the cause of young people, representing the SSA on special needs and equal opportunities. His concern is carrying these young people, working with the heads of the clusters. Madam Choma here is the head for Spinal Cord Association for FCT chapter. Are you working with the heads of this cluster? Because that's the only way you can collate data, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
The SSA whom I represent understand the importance and the value that the youth demography brings to the table. If I get my statistics right, the youth constitutes about 75% of Nigerian population, and just like he rightly said, we have a population of about 35.1 million Nigerians with disability. A large percentage of these, more than 50%, are youth. So the SSA is concerned about this demography, and so that is why he came up with this legacy or signature project in his office titled the Beyond Disability Project. That project was launched last year, July, by Mr. President, represented by the Vice President at the State House Banquet Hall, Aso Villa. And then this is a lofty initiative that aims to empower over 5,000 youths through skills development, through mentoring, through education empowerment, talent discovery and development. And also this project, when fully implemented, has the capacity to provide about 36,551 jobs across the different states and local government, even up to ward level, because the program was designed to have state coordinators, local government coordinators, ward coordinators. But where we have challenges in implementing this project is at the state level. The president, mandated the SSA to liaise with the subnational authorities, which are the state government. That is where, because the office of the SSA cannot, implement this project alone. Because
across the
yes, and
yeah.
the people that we are targeting, they are in the states, they are in the grassroots, they are in the local government, they are in the ward. Yeah. So we need the cooperation of the subnational authorities, the state governments, the local government authorities. There was a time we even write to all the state governors to nominate, state coordinators. For some of the state governors responded, while some are yet to respond. But the project, when fully implemented, we discover the talent, because persons with disability, they are very loaded with a lot of potentialities.
Yes,
so what
brilliant.
they are just asking for is the enabling environment, the equal opportunity that they can leverage on for them to harness that innate potential that God has deposited in them, and them to be able to fulfill their own life aspirations. So we have this program targeted to youths to engage them in skills acquisition, in mentorship, this skill acquisition is going to be in the mostly in the entertainment industry, because this one sector that the persons with disability are excluded, but a lot of them are so talented in arts, in entertainment, even in movie industry, even music. So and we are doing this project in partnership with a lot of development partners.
What about the Ministry of Creative Arts?
Yes, we're also working, we're liaising with them, we're trying to work with them so that we can get the full benefits of this program, so that Nigerian youths who are with disability will not suffer double jeopardy. You know, the double jeopardy is prohibited in law. It is one thing to be disabled; it's another thing to not have the opportunity to express the talent that God has given. That is double jeopardy, and the law prohibits that. So we want to ensure that all Nigerians with disability are able to use the God-given talent that God has deposited in them, to become somebody that is meaningful in life.
All right, well said, Mr. Larry Oloyede. I'm sure you've just given a lot of millions of persons with disability hope that the narrative will change. And talking about narrative changing, especially for young people, and back to my copper we. Copper we. So, Divine Favor, you've talked about the skills you want to get involved in. You've talked about your concerns for the future and all of that. But are you taking advantage of your space, your digital space? Are you engaging that space positively? Because digital skills is the way to go. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes, so I'm speaking on behalf of the youth as well. So we, the youth, are actively embracing the digital age, not just as consumers, but as creators, innovators, and problem solvers, because these digital skills are opening up a world of opportunities for us. Now, utilizing it as freelancers and remote workers, like we go to learn these digital skills at virtual assistant, web developers, and then go to work on Upwork, LinkedIn to search for work, and then work remotely. Now we have broken the geographical barrier, right? And then you have the tech startup, whereby you have youths that now build up apps for trading, buying and selling, a whole lot of it. You have the content creation and influencer marketing, and then you have the social media as well. So far so good. We are utilizing it so far and still extending more into it. Yes.
Okay, Anita, you haven't spoken. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, I believe that youths are actually taking advantage of this, because more people are beginning to make use of online stores. Instagram, for instance, open an online store, sell. People are engaging themselves in product design, creating products and selling. They are also engaging in networking, in order to, when people come together, things get better. So like minds coming together to create bigger platforms and opportunities for people as well.
Because the opportunities are enormous, and of course you can't just, it's a whole lot to leverage on. Victor, you want to share your thoughts with us, because as a young man, there are bills to pay after Kopawi. Wow. So are you taking advantage of that aspect, digital skills?
Well, yes, I am. Staying with trends and also e-learning. I'll relate this to the graphic design and also video editing. There's always an update for each of those apps that are being used. So, and those updates comes with new features that you have to master and then make use of at each and every point in time to stay abreast, and then, okay, your customer is satisfied that this is a new feature and I'm impressed with this. You get it?
And I've just given you a new mentor, Mr. Olushola David here. He's a graphic designer, fantastic one. So he will be your mentor, free of charge, Mr. David.
Most definitely.
All right, Amira, let's hear from you. Amira, you strike me like someone who would do so well in the creative aspect, but I'm not in your mind. Do you think there is a gap, for young people who are not leveraging opportunities abound?
I think there is a gap, because if you embracing digital skills it opens a lot of doors for you. For example, me as a creative writer, I've been involved in so many communities where I've met people from different countries, different parts of the country also, and we've shared ideas, helped each other a lot when it comes to creating storylines. Yes, for example, let's say someone is from another country now, and you want to write a story based on that country as the setting. You have that person as a friend already to put you through, to teach you on how things are done there. So you have the knowledge. And that's one advantage of having a digital skill, because it opens doors for you to learn from more people. You won't be restricted to just where you are.
So very briefly, how do you think that gap can be filled up, so that young people can be, carried along? More young people, because some are already benefiting.
I think creating awareness is one of them.
Okay.
Letting people know the advantage of learning a digital skill, no matter what field it is. When you let them know that this is what you stand to gain, when you learn this particular skill, more people are going to be interested in wanting to learn. And in the process, the gap is going to keep on getting smaller until it's finally...
Copper, Wow. Fantastic. All right. Fisayo, you've heard from the discussant here. There's a lot we're still unlocking, expanding the discourse and looking for ways to address challenges. It's just 2 years. There's another journey ahead. Let me hear your thoughts.
Ruth, I know you seem to be nostalgic about your time in the NYSC camp. I can see that very well. But this is
had a great time.
It is only this is the only part of the general chain that you can't repeat NYSC. Even I understand they are paying 77,000 naira. You can't. In my own time was 7,000. So you guys.
I would not say how much was my allowance.
10 times what I used to collect, I think. But we can't repeat NYSC, so you just have to leave them to enjoy this. You used to obey the clarion call. I think that was a line in the NYSC anthem. You used to obey the clarion call, leave the nation. So allow them to enjoy their alawi. So, but we'll come to this aisle, and even Prof is still remembering his own service too, but because you have taken everybody down memory lane. Well, Prof, let's just look at some of the issues we've discussed about as we begin to wrap up. We are entering the home straight of this program, and you have spoken from different sides of the aisle as an academician, as a lawmaker. But let's come to your constituency briefly, because they sent you to Abuja, and I have it on good report that. You have not tinted your windows. Even after we, elected you, you still have an open door policy. But in terms of interventions you want from the federal government, especially in your region, what would they be? And which areas would you want them to come in very quickly? We've seen, the electricity metering thing in, Abia, and how that can also help the sector in terms of improved services in that sector, talking about the power sector. We've seen some road rehabilitation works going on in this Equano, for instance, in Abia as well. But in terms of, we just want to give you this opportunity. You are, of course, of the opposition, but we've seen some measure of interaction between opposition and even the government in power, especially on the floor of the House. So what interventions would you want from the current administration?
Well, most of in the South generally, the private sector is a bit thriving, and but what mostly the people require, not just in my constituency, but in the state and the South region as a place, is that people require much of federal government presence is not as much as felt as it should have been. Take, for example, one state, maybe say Kaduna, will have more than 5 times what you have in the whole of Southwest region. For that, you can't get people to stay in their place because of job availability. And federal government presence is really much lacking. But taking it down, you have some states that don't have certain specialized universities, like University of Agriculture, or states that don't have the secondary or tertiary health sector. These are areas that are not just that they're essential, they are life moving instruments. So these are the things that people would really want to see available. You can get some local government or a region that you don't see federal government tertiary institution, but you don't see those health institutions. If you come to the area of other amenities, you don't see. So that's why you see most people traveling out. Let me give an instance. In the Anyway port, it has been closed for the last 3 years for more than several times. Why can't this be repaid once? It's actually my constituency. So my people want it to be repaid once.
And it's been repaid in batches.
No, it's not really in batches. It's the same thing that is being repeated. The runway is bad the other time. It was repaid. It was closed down. They come back again. Is
that a quality of work issue?
I have not gone into the detail, but I think it's part of it.
You may need to do that.
Yeah,
because
just yesterday, I engaged the chairman of House Committee on Aviation, and I told him this particular airport is the only gateway in the southeast. There is no night landing gear, and a lot of other things.
I equally have the same for myself. We need the landing, of course.
And then also that of the runway. Each time it's being closed.
I'm from the southwest, though.
Okay.
So
but it's the same thing.
Yes, it's the same thing. Anyway, let's also look at the issue of executive legislation that I spoke to briefly to touch that in terms of the interaction on the floor of the House. For national development, not just on party basis, but conversations for national development, not perhaps making a point for our party we've had in the past. How has the interaction been like with the executive, especially in drawing attention to key issues that the legislature wants also to move from concept to actuality?
Well, I think I would say that there is a very good and cordial relationship between the executive and the legislatures. I think I wouldn't say, let me just say, for the first time, there's a lot of bills that are stalled in the past that have already passed. You know what we went through the conversation about the tax bill. But at the end of it was well managed and well passed. At least for the two houses, they're almost moving towards sending it for assent. The issue of the student loan is also a very wonderful aspect where you see the cooperation between the legislatures and executive yielding fruits. Because what people need is the dividend of democracy coming down to them. The disconnect between legislative impact and what the aspiration of the people, what has been creating these, I would say, where people are distrust in the populace. If the people see the impact of the legislators, it will be something that when you see the legislators, you are congratulating for what he has been doing because you've seen what he's doing. However, having said that, I would also say, even before I move to other laws that have been made, like in terms of the education sector, in terms of the electricity, these are some impacts that the current House has actually have actualized because of the cooperation between them. But I wouldn't want the House to be looked upon by the level, how often they agree with the executives. They should, but look at them. But how their representation that people are feeling, how the people have felt the impact in terms of legislation, in terms of also dividends in their constituency. I would say that the House, the impact of legislation is to listen deeply, legislate wisely, and act boldly. So in the current dispensation, looking forward, I will say that the House, the majority of the House should be measured by how the impact of the legislation on the people, but as well on the way they hold the executive and other accountable.
Let me clear this for our viewers. Is it true that members of the House of Assembly and the Senate sometimes put pressure on heads of MDAs? If your project or things from your constituency are not in their own budgets or what they want, they outline, you make it difficult for them. Is it true?
It's not possible that everything will be in your budget. It's not that every constituency will be presented.
Are there instances like that?
I haven't seen. However, I wouldn't juxtapose what I have not seen in this case. But that doesn't mean that maybe there's no alterations. Maybe you will also, if legislation is a bit robust, you need to engage everybody. And this is 360 men and women in one house. Everybody just for one or two constituencies to get something. There will be some of those things. People react differently. And reacting differently, you may get also various impact based on that. However, if
you protest loud enough, they will give you something to pacify you in your area.
No, not really if you protest so much. But you have to act with reason. If you act based on reason, I give you an instance. If you come to some states, I use that of areas with health. There's areas in a whole sanitarian zone you wouldn't have tertiary hospital or primary hospital to augment the one being done by the state. And these are squarely under the federal government purview. So one must protest and get this to see that this comes. However, even in the state, you also compete. Where is it going to be? These are things that are intricacies in where the politics meet hard reality. We must have been elected maybe from one state, but at the same time, you start also justifying where is this going to be or situated at that. So also, if you come to the House, you also know that opposition, the number of opposition currently in the House are low. So you must do things in the purview of cooperation. There is always that word, compromise. If you compromise a little bit, to be able to have cooperation with others, you have that of horizontal cooperation and also that of vertical cooperation. That's how you could achieve anything, because you can't do it alone. Well, the minority may have their say, but the majority will have their way. So sometimes you act within that purview. And that's what maybe sometimes people don't understand with the opposition parties. That the opposition party, reject this, do this. But does it have that impact? The impact it means, can we come together to achieve? Because all of us are elected for the national good, not just our constituency. You must make sure that you check what is happening in the policy on education, policy on health, custom and excise duties, what is going wrong there? Immigration, what is going wrong there? You check things like, even such things like even bankruptcy that affect individuals. What are our laws that have been, that are just coming from the relics of the colonial masters that we still have available? How can we conform with the current realities in what we are doing? These are the aspects that must bother most of us in the House, apart from that of our constituency, because we are we are representing the nation, not just our constituency.
I'm smiling because I seem to see, academics and politics, they are quarreling in your statements. But I will come back to that because. But let me go to Ayo. You need to, interrogate some of these things, but perhaps get the final comments from your guests on key sectors of the economy before we round up. We'll come back to my guest for his closing comments. But I want you to take your guests on their final comments on the key sectors of the economy, what they want, the interventions they want in the second half of the administration. All right,
thank you so much, Fisayo. We're just discussing that while you were interacting with Professor Namchi, and I would like you to speak to some specific areas. Let me start with Danzaki. You are a senior citizen. One of the pillars of the 8 priority areas is social welfare, to ensure that senior citizens, those who are with disability, the elderly, get proper care and attention. In the last 2 years, what are those initiatives that you've seen, and where do you think things can get better in the next 2 years? Actually, I have a mom who is a pensioner, and uncles and the rest also who also wait for these things at the end of every month.
Thank you so much. I hope that the administration will look at the welfare and also look at the skills where the incoming generation will have their way out. You see, sometimes I'm not talking about myself. I'm thinking about my children and my grandchildren. My children are grown-up children. They are in high positions, but I'm looking about my grandchildren. And we must have to set a position for them. And I hope that the National Assembly, like what one of us here is talking, some of them I know they are academicians. When they are in the campus, they talk about the welfare, they talk about people's interests. But immediately, like I said earlier, immediately they clench this and they talk about the revenue, they talk about this. I hope with this trend, they will check and see National Board of Technical Education have approached me that two continents are in deficit of 6,000 drivers, articulated vehicles. And the first approach was Nigeria. The approach in Nigeria that they have competent people because they realize is that Nigerian drivers, sometimes they took their work from here, from Nigeria, Cameroon to cross Cameroon, French-speaking country, they could chat, and then go to Sudan, to Darfur, Arabic-speaking country, and landed everything successfully and come back. So therefore, in the skill acquisition, no articulated driver that you would think that he will be a driver of the big trailer without having three years with that skill acquisition. I hope that the government will look into that area and bring it to that level. And the National Assembly, if they really want to know what is the posture and what is the problem about the transportation, let them set up a small transport company. Then they will come and give us a credit and give us a good recommendation. So the government, I hope that, like I said earlier, Tinubu administration, will, like I know him very well, he will set up a revolution council to make sure that transportation is free for everybody. Everything will crash.
Thank you so much. And Amsfree, just a quick one. 2 years. Let's look at the electoral system. We're going to have some off-cycle elections. We saw what happened in 2023. Last year was in Edo and Ondo. 2025, we're going to have it happening in a number of states. How much of changes have we seen improvements in terms of the methodology and the conduct of the election going forward for the next 2 years and the big masquerade in 2027?
Absolutely. Ayo, this is the elephant in the room. And to dissect this, of course, I think we need a whole,
I get that.
we need a program of its own. But within the constraint of the time, let me say that the election administration in the country has seen a lot of effort, INEC. In fact, talking about the National Assembly, we have a Labour Party. In fact, we've had one of the most diverse National Assembly in our history in these 2023 elections that produced, very different colors of the National Assembly. So it means that we have made some progress here and there, but there are challenges. And the challenge is in the declining level of participation, the trust deficit that has accompanied the electoral process, and the fact that we need to shore up that participation. And I'll give you a practical example. I was looking at the data for the last FCT area council elections, conducted by INEC. AMAC, which is supposed to be the abode of the politicians, the likes of Ayo, the likes of Fisayo, had a voter turnout of 5.9%. So the elitist or the most elitist part of our country, in a sense, which should be interested in politics, was actually not, not at the polls. The highest participation we saw in the FCT was around Abuja, where they had like 18%, participation. That should tell you that there is declining participation in the democratic process, and there is a need for urgent reforms that will bring people. And, the National Assembly recognized that recently. That was why there was the introduction of a bill for compulsory voting, which those of us in civil society kicked against, because we know that that will not solve the problem. The issues and the challenges in the electoral process are well known. And until those are tackled, you cannot use compulsory voting to solve those problems. And INEC is beginning to address some of those issues by submitting a bouquet of proposals, about 154 proposals to the National Assembly for amendments, including amendments in the Constitution. One of which I have actually commended, which is the proposal for removing this whole thing about collection of PVC. The logistics of collection of PVC in a country where you have high and endemic poverty level, is enough discouragement from participation. So if that is removed, I'm sure there are many others which I'm sure we have opportunity to talk about.
Big time, because there's so many platforms when national events are coming up on the NT. We'll have the June 12 and different programs where we have enough time to really delve into this thing. Fisayo, I'm seeing you from a different perspective because of the blend of color you have with Professor Namchi. Sometimes it's difficult to actually know who is the presenter and who is the honorable. But this time, Fisayo, just from this corner where I find myself, it's easy to always tell people when you are not patronizing something in the digital ecosystem, if you are not buying the commodity there, then you are the commodity. Fisayo, well, I don't know which one you'd like to talk about.
Thank you very much for observing the colors. Prof used to be in the lecture theater. He's now in the National Assembly. I'm in NTA today. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. Let's look at that issue. And last leave before I let you go. Final words, Prof, very quickly. They say a robust opposition is also, a feature of a thriving democracy. Final words on 2 years of the current administration before we let you go.
My final word would be that this administration will be judged not by how good their reforms are, but the breadth of the impact on the people. And I hope and pray that as we're moving forward in the next 2 years, they will manage the growth of those reforms so they're able to have enough impact on the people. And I also pray that the people also manage to see the impact of what the administration has in mind for the people, because it is for national recovery. But I also say that the government must also know that the stage momentum of the inertia, should have overgrown the inertia. They are now to maintain growth. And that's what I think the government must focus on. Nobody will excuse the government on still starting. All of us will focus on impact and the breadth of those impact on those reforms. So also the National Assembly, I also say that the disconnect will work towards bridging those gaps and ensuring there's accountability in terms of budgeting, in terms of anti-corruption, and also in terms of having democracy dividends related to the trickle down to the masses. But at the same time, we will listen deeply, legislate wisely, and also implement reforms, help to implement, make legislation that are bold enough for the people to feel the impact. Thank you.
All right, many thanks to Professor Paul Machi, members of representatives representing Enugu East and Isuzu federal constituencies of the Labour Party. And of course, we'll go to the town hall where a microcosm of Nigeria, people taken from all walks of life since morning, people from, different strata of society. We even had market women leaders earlier in the morning. Many thanks to all of you for coming, especially also Kefas Dongoyaro, advisor to the President on NURTW, Suleiman Adamu Danzaki, SSA to the President on Intergovernment Affairs, and of course our own Arms-Free Ajanaku, who has been giving us duty-free advice and concepts, sharing its concepts and experience, as well as process from his research with us today on so many issues in society. Many thanks to all of you for coming on NTA's special program, and we wish you the very best, hoping that you join us again when we call on you. That has been the program for today. Don't forget, we still have documentaries looking at the midterm assessment and also projecting into the future. My name is Fisaya Ogunfi, thanking my colleagues Ruta Agwele and Ayodeji Makinde for being a part of this session, and earlier Claire Adelabu Abdurazak, who was also here to moderate the panel earlier. That has been the program, hoping that you keep it along to the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest and finest, for news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.